The stars belonged to the hegemony. For 3,000 years, they had ruled the galaxy with perfect control. Their ships moved between worlds like clockwork. Their armies fought with precision that made war look like art. When they wanted a planet, they took it. When they wanted resources, they claimed them. No one questioned their power. The hegemony did not destroy worlds. That was wasteful and crude. Instead, they broke the spirit of their enemies with careful strikes. They would bomb a few military bases, cut off supply lines, and broadcast messages of surrender terms. Most species gave up within weeks. Those who resisted learned that the hegemony could make their lives miserable without killing everyone. Admiral Kethver stood on the bridge of his flagship. Looking at the holographic display of the galaxy, red dots showed hegemony worlds. Blue dots showed allied species. Green dots showed neutral territories. The map was mostly red. It had taken 3 millennia to paint it that way, but the work was nearly complete. Admiral, his aide approached. We have received the survey report. From the outer rim, the science division found another inhabited world. Kethver barely looked up. New worlds were discovered every few months. Most held primitive species that barely understood fire, let alone space travel. Classification? Single planet species. They call their world Earth. The locals call themselves humans. Early technological development. They have basic nuclear weapons and simple spacecraft that cannot leave their star system. Standard integration protocol then, Kethver said. Send the Fifth Fleet. Admiral Vexthara can handle first contact. Give them the usual demonstration and terms. The aide hesitated. Sir, there is something unusual in the report. Now Kethver looked up. Nothing was unusual anymore. The hegemony had seen every type of species, every form of resistance, every military doctrine. Explain. The humans appear to have a strange approach to warfare. According to our observations, they fight each other constantly. But their conflicts are ... intense. They do not follow standard military practices. Kethver waved his hand dismissively. Primitive species often fight among themselves. They will learn proper warfare once they join the galactic community. Send. The Fifth Fleet? The aide bowed and left. Kethver returned to his star charts, already forgetting about the small blue world on the edge of nowhere. He should have paid more attention. The planet Earth hung in space like a blue marble. Beautiful and fragile. Its surface was covered with vast oceans and green continents. From orbit it looked peaceful. The hegemony's initial scouts had noted this in their reports. Earth seemed like a garden world, the kind of place where gentle beings might evolve. They were wrong. Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the command center of the International Defense Coalition, watching the screens that showed humanity's first visitors from space. The massive alien ship hung in the sky above Earth like a dark cloud. It was 10 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack continents. Any response to our communication attempts? She asked. Nothing yet, replied Colonel Martinez. But they're scanning everything? Every military base, every city, every nuclear facility. They know exactly what we have. Sarah nodded. She had expected this. First contact protocols had been debated for decades. Most scientists believe that any alien species capable of interstellar travel would be peaceful. After all, a civilization that could build starships would surely have learned to control their aggressive impulses. Sarah had never believed that theory. She had studied too much human history. Ma'am, a technician called out. We're receiving a transmission. The main screen flickered, then showed the bridge of the alien vessel. The being standing in the center was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the computer translated its words into English. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. I am Admiral Vexthara of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our community. You will be given standard terms for surrender and incorporation. Resistance is not advised. Sarah stepped forward to the communication console. This is Dr. Sarah Chun, speaking for the people of Earth. We thank you for your message. However, we need time to consider your terms. We request a formal meeting to discuss the details. Admiral Vextara seemed amused. You wish to negotiate? That is unusual, but acceptable. You have 3 days to prepare your surrender. After that, we will begin standard pacification procedures. The transmission ended. The alien ship continued to orbit Earth, a constant reminder of humanity's situation. 3 days, Colonel Martinez said quietly. That's not much time. Sarah was already reaching for her secure phone. It's enough. Send the emergency codes to all world leaders. Activate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 had been developed in secret over the past 20 years. It was based on a simple principle that most of humanity's leaders understood but never spoke about publicly. If Earth ever faced an existential threat from space, there would be no surrender. There would be no negotiation from a position of weakness. There would be only one response: total war, within hours. Something unprecedented began happening on Earth. For the first time in human history, every nation began sharing their military secrets. The United States transmitted nuclear launch codes. To Russia, China shared stealth technology with NATO. Israel provided biological weapons research to Iran. Pakistan sent missile guidance systems to India, the old enemies. The ancient hatreds, the political divisions that had defined human civilization, for millennia all vanished in the face of a common threat. Not because humanity had suddenly become peaceful, but because they had found something they all wanted to kill more than each other. Admiral Vextara watched the activity on Earth's surface with growing confusion. The humans were not behaving like any species she had encountered before. Instead of panic and chaos, she observed rapid organization. Instead of fighting among themselves, they were cooperating. What are they doing? Her tactical officer asked. Unknown, Vextara replied. It appears they are redistributing their military assets. Perhaps they believe they can mount some form of defense. The tactical officer checked his readings. Admiral, our scans show they possess approximately 12,000 nuclear weapons. That is far beyond the norm for a single-planet species. 12,000? Vextara was surprised. Most species had perhaps a dozen nuclear weapons when the hegemony made contact. Are you certain? Yes, Admiral. And the number keeps increasing as they move weapons from hidden locations. Vextara frowned. This was unusual, but not alarming. Nuclear weapons were primitive technology. The hegemony shields could absorb hundreds of nuclear blasts without difficulty. Continue monitoring. Inform me of any significant changes. What she did not know was that the humans were not just moving weapons. They were teaching each other. Every military doctrine, every tactical manual, every strategy for asymmetric warfare was being shared through quantum-encrypted channels. The species that had perfected the art of killing each other was now learning how to kill everything else on the surface of Earth. General Harrison stood in the Pentagon's crisis room, surrounded by officers from every nation on the planet. The screens around them showed the alien ship, weapon deployments, and troop movements across 6 continents. Status report, he commanded. All nuclear assets are now under unified command, reported a Russian colonel. Total count is now at 15,000 warheads and climbing as we bring strategic reserves online. Chemical weapons? Harrison asked. Full deployment capability, answered a Chinese general. We can sterilize any landmass on the planet within. Hours, biological agents? Ready for dispersal, confirmed an Israeli intelligence officer. We've also prepared contingency packages that can be deployed via satellite if Earth falls. Harrison nodded grimly. The aliens thought they were dealing with a typical pre-space flight civilization. They were about to learn that humans were anything but typical. Every other species in the galaxy had developed space travel before perfecting warfare. Humans had done the opposite. Remember, Harrison addressed the room, we're not trying to win. We're not trying to survive. We're trying to send a message that will echo across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The message was simple. Humanity would rather burn the universe down than kneel before it. 3 days passed quickly. The third day arrived like a storm. Admiral Vextara stood on her bridge, watching Earth turn slowly below. The planet looked the same as when she had arrived, but her sensors told a different story. The humans had been busy. "Admiral," her science officer called out, "the humans have increased their nuclear arsenal to 18,000 weapons. They have also moved significant military assets to hidden locations." Vextara nodded. This was still within expected parameters. Many species tried to hide weapons before surrendering. It was a natural response. "Any communication from the surface?" "Yes, Admiral. They request permission to send a representative to our ship." This was new. Most species either surrendered immediately or begged for mercy through long-range communication. They did not ask to come aboard hegemony vessels. "What type of representative?" "A military officer. They say he wishes to discuss terms in person." Vextara considered this. It could be a trap, but what could a primitive human do aboard a hegemony dreadnought? Her ship had shields that could stop nuclear weapons and security systems that could handle any biological threat. Very well. Have them send their representative, but scan everything thoroughly. An hour later, a small human spacecraft approached the Eternal Dominion. It was a crude vessel, powered by chemical rockets and held together with metal plates. The pilot was alone. The ship carried no weapons, no biological agents, nothing dangerous according to the scans. The human was brought aboard in the cargo bay. He was an older man with gray hair and weathered skin. He wore a simple military uniform with no decorations except for a small flag patch. When he spoke, he was calm and polite. "I am Captain Robert Mackenzie of the Earth Defense Force, I request an audience with Admiral Vextara." The security team escorted him to the bridge. Mackenzie walked through the corridors of the alien ship without showing fear or amazement. He observed everything but made no comments about the advanced technology surrounding him. Admiral Vextara received him in the main bridge chamber. The room was vast and gleaming, filled with holographic displays and control systems that no human could understand. At the center stood the Admiral herself, elegant and imposing in her ceremonial armor. "Welcome aboard, Captain Mackenzie," she said through the universal translator. "I assume you have come to discuss the terms of your planet's surrender." Mackenzie stood at attention. "Actually, Admiral, I have come to tell you a story." Vextara was confused. "A story?" "Yes, ma'am. You see, we humans have a tradition. Before we fight, we like to make sure our enemies understand who they are dealing with. It prevents misunderstandings." The bridge crew exchanged glances. This human was either very brave or completely insane. Possibly both. "Very well," Vextara said, curious despite herself. "Tell your story." Mackenzie clasped his hands behind his back and began to speak. His voice was steady and clear, carrying across the bridge chamber. 2,400 years ago, there was a place called Thermopylae. A small force of 300 warriors stood against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they could not win. They knew they would all die. But they fought anyway, because their job was not to survive. Their job was to buy time and send a message. The alien officers listened politely. They had heard similar tales from other species. Stories of heroic last stands were common throughout the galaxy. "They held the enemy for 3 days," Mackenzie continued. "Every one of them died. But they killed so many of their enemies that the invasion was weakened. More importantly, they showed their people that death was preferable to surrender." Mackenzie paused, looking around at the advanced technology surrounding him. "That story is still told on our world today. Every human child learns it. Every soldier remembers it. It is part of who we are." Vextara was beginning to feel uncomfortable, though she could not say why. "An inspiring tale, Captain. But surely you understand that courage cannot overcome superior technology." "Oh, I agree completely," Mackenzie said with a slight smile. "That's why I want to tell you another story. This one is more recent." He began to pace slowly, his hands still clasped behind his back. 70 years ago, there was a city called Stalingrad. An enemy army surrounded it and tried to capture it. The defenders could have surrendered. The city was already half destroyed. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Mackenzie stopped pacing and looked directly at Admiral Vexthara. Instead, they fought for every building, every room, every staircase. They turned their own city into a meat grinder. By the time the battle was over, both sides had lost hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The city was completely destroyed. But the defenders won because they were willing to pay any price. The silence on the bridge was growing heavy. The alien crew was beginning to understand that these were not just stories, they were warnings. "Captain," Vexthara said carefully, "I appreciate your historical accounts. But they do not change your situation. You cannot resist the hegemony." "You're absolutely right," Mackenzie agreed. "We cannot resist you. We cannot defeat you. We cannot drive you away. But Admiral, you're thinking like a civilized being. That's your first mistake." He gestured toward the view screen showing Earth. "Below, every species you have conquered learned warfare from you. They adopted your methods, your rules, your limitations. They fought to win. We don't fight to win, Admiral. We fight to destroy." Mackenzie's voice remained calm, but his words carried a chill that seemed to spread through the bridge. "You want to conquer Earth? Fine, you can have it. But understand what that means. It means fighting 3 billion humans who would rather die than submit. It means urban warfare in every city on the planet. It means chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons used without restraint." He pointed to the planet below. "You see a garden world with valuable resources. We see a fortress that we've spent 10,000 years learning how to defend. Every human alive today is descended from people who survived by being more ruthless than their enemies." Vexthara felt a cold sensation in her stomach. "Captain, you cannot seriously believe that resistance would be successful." "Successful?" Mackenzie laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Admiral, success is not the goal. The goal is to make conquering us so expensive that no one else will try it. The goal is to kill so many of your people that the hegemony will think twice before attacking another world." He leaned forward slightly. "We have studied your history, Admiral. You fight clean wars, surgical strikes, minimal casualties. You try to preserve infrastructure and population because they are valuable to you. We don't fight clean wars." Mackenzie straightened up. "When we fight to annihilate our enemies completely. We don't try to capture territory. We don't try to preserve anything. We turn everything into wasteland and dare our enemies to take it." The bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Admiral Vexthara found herself staring at this small, gray-haired human who spoke of annihilation as casually as discussing the weather. "You're bluffing," she said finally. Mackenzie reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. Vexthara's security team tensed, but their scanners showed it was harmless. It was just a communication device. "Earth Command, this is Mackenzie. Initiate Demonstration Protocol Alpha." He put the device away and looked at Admiral Vexthara. "Admiral, I suggest you watch your sensors very carefully for the next few minutes. We're about to show you something that might interest you." Far below on Earth's surface, 18 different nuclear silos opened simultaneously. The missiles that emerged were not aimed at the hegemony ship. Instead, they streaked toward empty areas of space, their nuclear warheads detonating in brilliant flashes that lit up the darkness. But that was just the beginning. Chemical rockets carrying biological payloads followed, their contents dispersing harmlessly in the vacuum of space. Then came the experimental weapons, devices that the hegemony sensors could not even identify. "Impressive display," Vexthara said, though her voice was less steady than before. "But those weapons cannot harm my ship." "You're right, Mackenzie." "Agreed. Those weapons are not for you. They are for us." The Admiral stared at him. "I don't understand." Mackenzie's expression became very serious. "Admiral, that demonstration used less than 1% of our available firepower. If you attack Earth, we will use the remaining 99% on ourselves." The bridge crew turned to stare at the human. Even by galactic standards, this was insanity. "We call it scorched earth policy," Mackenzie explained. "If we cannot keep something, we make sure no one else can have it either." Every city, every factory, every resource you want will be destroyed before you can claim it. You will inherit a radioactive wasteland populated by the dead. Vexthara's mouth felt dry. That is suicide. Yes, it is, Mackenzie said calmly. And we are very good at it. Admiral Vexthara stared at Captain Mackenzie for a long moment. The human stood calmly on her bridge, hands clasped behind his back, as if he had just discussed the weather instead of threatening planetary suicide. Around them, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, but she could feel their tension. You are insane, she said finally. Mackenzie tilted his head slightly. That's what the Nazis said about the Russians. That's what the British said about the Americans. That's what every civilized enemy has said about us throughout history. They were all wrong. We're not insane, Admiral. We're just very, very good at being human. Vexthara activated her personal communicator. Security, escort Captain Mackenzie to holding cell 7. Full biological containment. That won't be necessary, Mackenzie said. I'm not carrying any weapons or diseases. I came here to talk, and we're not finished talking. We are finished, Vexthara replied coldly. Your planet has 1 hour to surrender unconditionally, or we begin pacification procedures. Mackenzie sighed. Admiral, you're still not listening. Let me try a different approach. He looked around. The bridge, taking in the advanced technology and the alien crew members. Tell me, how many wars has the hegemony fought? Hundreds, Vexthara answered proudly. We have brought peace and order to the galaxy. And how many of those wars lasted? More than a year? Vexthara paused. Most conflicts are resolved within months. Prolonged warfare is inefficient. Exactly, Mackenzie said. You fight efficient wars, clean wars. You demonstrate superior firepower, offer reasonable terms, and your enemies surrender. Everyone gets to live, the infrastructure stays intact, and you gain new subjects for your empire. He walked over to one of the bridge windows and looked down at Earth. We don't know how to fight that kind of war, Admiral. Every major conflict in human history has been total war. We don't stop fighting until one side is completely destroyed. Mackenzie turned back to face her. Do you know what the longest war in human history was? It lasted 116 years. 116 years, Admiral. We fought our own neighbors for over a century about who should rule a small piece of land. Both sides knew they could end it at any time by negotiating. Neither side would quit. The bridge fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Vexthara felt something cold growing in her chest. This human was not boasting or trying to frighten her. He was simply explaining facts as casually as a teacher giving a lesson. You mentioned the Nazis, she said slowly. Who were they? Mackenzie's expression darkened. A group of humans who decided they were superior to all other humans. They started a war to prove it. The war lasted 6 years and killed 55 million people. They built factories whose only purpose was to murder civilians. They turned mass killing into an industrial process. He paused, letting that sink in. And they lost, Admiral. They lost because the rest of humanity decided that stopping them was worth any price. We bombed our own cities to rubble. We sent millions of our young people to die in foreign lands. We built weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Vexthara's tactical officer spoke up nervously. Admiral, our scans show the humans have moved additional nuclear weapons to launch positions. Current count is over 20,000 warheads. 20,000? Vexthara stared at the display. That is impossible. No single planet species could produce that many nuclear weapons. Mackenzie smiled grimly. We've been building them for 70 years, Admiral. Not for conquest, not for expansion, for mutual annihilation. We built enough nuclear weapons to kill everyone on Earth several times over, just to make sure that if we ever faced extinction, we could guarantee our enemies would die with us. He gestured toward the tactical display. Those 20,000 warheads, that's just what we keep ready for immediate use. We have weapons stockpiled in hidden bunkers on submarines and satellite platforms. We have chemical weapons that can kill everything that breathes. We have biological weapons that can destroy entire ecosystems. Vexthara felt dizzy. Why? Why would any species build such weapons? Because we learned something that apparently no other species in the galaxy understands, Mackenzie replied. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to be willing to destroy it, the communication console chimed. Vexthara's aide announced, Admiral, we are receiving multiple transmissions from Earth. Put them through, she ordered. The main screen split into dozens of smaller screens, each showing a different human military leader. They spoke in different languages, but the universal translator made their words clear. This is General Harrison of the United Earth Defense Force. All nuclear assets are armed and ready. This is Admiral Petrov of the Russian Federation. Our submarine fleet is in position. This is General Zhang of the People's Liberation Army. Chemical weapons deployment is complete. This is Colonel Okafor of the African Union. Biological containment. Protocols are active. One by one, military commanders from every nation on Earth reported their readiness. Not readiness to fight the aliens, but readiness to destroy their own world. Mackenzie watched Vexthara's expression change as the reports came in. You see, Admiral, this is what we do when we're threatened with extinction. We don't panic. We don't surrender. We organize. And we prepare to take our enemies with us. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Vexthara looked at her tactical officer. Analysis. Admiral, the officer said quietly, if they carry out these threats, Earth will be uninhabitable for thousands of years. The planet will be worthless. That's the point, Mackenzie said. You want to conquer us for our resources, our labor, our strategic location. But if conquering us means inheriting a dead world, what's the point? Vexthara's science officer spoke. Up, Admiral, there's something else. Our deep scans show that the humans have been broadcasting their military doctrines into space for the past 3 days. Every species within 50 light years will have received detailed information about human warfare tactics. Mackenzie nodded. Insurance policy. Even if you destroy us, everyone in this sector of the galaxy will know what humans are capable of. They'll know that we chose death over surrender. Some of them might find that inspiring. Admiral Vexthara sank into her command chair. In 3,000 years of hegemony expansion, they had never encountered anything like this. Every other species had been rational. They weighed costs and benefits. They chose survival over pride. You would really do it, she said. It was not a question. Admiral, Mackenzie said gently, we've already done it multiple times. We've destroyed our own cities to deny them to enemies. We've poisoned our own land to stop invaders. We've killed millions of our own people rather than let them be enslaved. He looked around the bridge one more time. Every human on Earth right now is the descendant of people who survived by being more ruthless than their enemies. We are the children of warriors and killers and survivors. We are what evolution produces when a species spends 10,000 years in constant warfare. Mackenzie straightened his uniform. So here's what's going to happen, Admiral. You can attack U.S., and we will turn Earth into a graveyard that will haunt the hegemony for centuries. Or you can leave us alone and we can discuss more civilized arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Vexthara asked weakly. The kind where you treat us as equals instead of subjects, Mackenzie replied. The kind where we contribute to galactic civilization as partners, not slaves. The kind where everyone gets to live. He smiled, and for the first time it seemed genuine. We're not unreasonable, Admiral. We just want respect. And we found that the best way to earn respect is to make the alternative very, very expensive. Admiral. Vexthara looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's military assets. 20,000 nuclear weapons. Enough chemical and biological weapons to sterilize continents. And 3 billion humans who apparently prefer death to defeat. I need to consult with my superiors, she said. Of course, Mackenzie replied. Take all the time you need. We'll be here. He paused at the bridge entrance. Oh, and Admiral? You? Might want to mention to your superiors that this conversation is being broadcast live to every human on Earth. They're all watching. They're all waiting to see if their representative succeeded in explaining humanity to the galaxy. And if we choose to attack anyway? Mackenzie's smile disappeared. Then 3 billion humans will die knowing they sent their message clearly. And that message will echo across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. The door closed behind him, leaving Admiral Vextara alone with her crew and the terrible knowledge that humanity had just changed the rules of galactic warfare forever. The Emergency Council chamber of the Hegemony High Command had not seen such chaos in 3 centuries. Admiral Kethver stood before a curved table where holographic images of the galaxy's most powerful leaders flickered in the dim light. Each face showed the same expression of disbelief and growing alarm. "Repeat your report, Admiral Vextara," ordered Supreme Commander Thexanol. His ancient voice carrying across the vast chamber. Admiral Vextara's image wavered slightly in the hologram. She was still aboard her flagship, still orbiting the small blue world that had somehow managed to threaten the entire galactic order. "The humans have made their position clear, Supreme Commander. They will not surrender. They will not negotiate. From weakness? And they have the weapons to make good on their threats." "Impossible," snapped General Cuckstar of the Krovaxi Empire. "A single planet species cannot possess sufficient firepower to threaten a hegemony fleet." "They are not threatening us, General," Vextara replied quietly. "They are threatening themselves. Complete planetary annihilation rather than submission." The silence that followed was deafening. Around the table, the greatest military minds in the galaxy struggled to process this information. It violated every principle of rational warfare they had developed over millennia. Admiral Kethver leaned forward. "Vextara, are you certain this is not an elaborate bluff? Species often claim capabilities they do not possess when facing superior force." "I have reviewed the evidence personally, sir. Our scans confirm over 25,000 nuclear weapons in various stages of deployment. Additionally, they possess chemical and biological arsenals that could render their planet uninhabitable for centuries." She paused, gathering herself before continuing. "But sir, the weapons are not the real threat. The real threat is their mindset. They genuinely believe that death is preferable to defeat. This is not fear or desperation talking. This is their fundamental approach to existence." Supreme Commander Thexanol's expression had grown thoughtful. Unlike the younger commanders, he remembered the early days of hegemony expansion, when conquering new worlds still carried real risks. "Tell me about their military history. It is extensive, sir. They have been in a state of constant warfare for their entire recorded history. Not occasional conflicts like most species, but continuous, total warfare. They have developed military doctrines based on the complete destruction of their enemies." Vexthera activated a holographic display showing Earth's surface. "They have fought wars that lasted decades, even centuries. They have killed hundreds of millions of their own species in single conflicts. They have weaponized diseases, poisoned entire regions, and developed strategies specifically designed to maximize enemy casualties regardless of cost." General Cuckstar's mandibles clicked nervously. "Surely you exaggerate. No species could survive such continuous warfare." "That is exactly the point, General. The humans who survived did so by becoming more dangerous than anything that threatened them. They evolved into something that views mutual annihilation as a victory condition." Admiral Kethver studied the display carefully. "What are their current capabilities?" "Based on our scans, they could detonate enough nuclear weapons to crack their planet's crust. They could release enough chemical agents to poison their atmosphere for decades. They could deploy biological weapons that would kill every living thing on their world." The chamber fell silent again. Finally, Supreme Commander Thexanol spoke. "And they would actually do this?" "Sir," Vextara said slowly, "they have already done similar things to themselves throughout their history. This would not be unprecedented. For them, it would simply be the largest scale they have attempted." She activated another display showing historical data. 75 years ago, they fought a war where they bombed their own cities into ruins rather than let enemies capture them. 50 years ago, they built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet just to prevent any nation from achieving dominance over the others. Madness, whispered Minister Valken of the Zephyrian Collective. Complete madness. No, Minister, corrected Professor Dexmina, the hegemony's chief xenopsychologist. Her image appeared in the chamber as she joined the emergency session. I have been reviewing their cultural data. This is not madness. This is evolution. All eyes turned to the elderly scientist. She had studied hundreds of species during their integration into the hegemony, and her insights were highly respected. Most species develop spaceflight before perfecting warfare, she explained. They learn to cooperate before they learn to destroy. Humans did the opposite. They spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing before they ever left their planet. She gestured to a genetic analysis chart. Every human alive today is descended from survivors of this process. They are literally evolved killers. Their entire psychology is built around the concept that survival requires the complete destruction of threats. Supreme Commander Thexanol leaned back in his chair. What are you saying, Professor? I'm saying that humanity represents something we have never encountered before. A species that has weaponized extinction itself. They do not fight to win territory or resources. They fight to eliminate threats completely and permanently. Admiral Vexstar's communication system chimed. Supreme Commander, I am receiving another transmission from Earth. Put it through. The chamber's main display activated, showing the face of Captain Mackenzie. He looked tired but determined. Behind him, other human military leaders could be seen working at various control stations. Greetings to the Hegemony High Command, Mackenzie said calmly. I am Captain Robert Mackenzie, representing Earth in these discussions. I understand you are debating our future. Supreme Commander Thexanol found his voice. Captain, I am Supreme Commander Thexanol. We are attempting to understand your position. Our position is simple, Supreme Commander. We wish to join the galactic community as equals, not subjects. We are prepared to contribute our knowledge, our resources, and our capabilities to the common good, but we will not be conquered. And if we insist on standard integration protocols? Mackenzie's expression did not change. Then we will demonstrate that some victories are too expensive to achieve. General Cuckstar leaned forward aggressively. You threaten us with your own deaths? That is not a strategy. That is suicide. General, Mackenzie replied patiently, you misunderstand our strategy. We are not threatening to commit suicide. We are promising to commit murder-suicide on a planetary scale. There is a difference. He gestured off-screen and the display split to show launch facilities across Earth's surface. As we speak, we are preparing to deploy every weapon we possess. Not at your fleet, which we cannot harm, but at ourselves and at any force that attempts to occupy our world. You would kill billions of your own people? Minister Velkin asked in horror. Minister, we have killed billions of our own people. Before, usually for much smaller reasons than preventing the enslavement of our entire species. Mackenzie's image was replaced by a tactical display showing weapon deployments across Earth. The numbers were staggering. Nuclear silos opening across every continent. Chemical weapons platforms activating. Biological research facilities preparing to release their deadliest creations. But Captain, Supreme Commander Thexanol said carefully, surely you understand that such actions would accomplish nothing. You would all be dead, and we would simply colonize your world with other species. Would you, Supreme Commander? Would you really want to colonize a radioactive wasteland? Would you want to explain to every other species in the galaxy why the hegemony chose to drive an entire civilization to suicide rather than negotiate with them? The tactical display changed, showing broadcast signals emanating from Earth in all directions. For the past 6 hours, we have been transmitting detailed records of this encounter to every inhabited system within 100 light years. We have shared our military doctrines, our defensive strategies, and our willingness to choose death over defeat. Mackenzie's face reappeared on the screen. Supreme Commander, how many other species do you think share our views? How many worlds are watching this encounter and wondering if they should have fought harder when you came for them? How many are learning from our example? The chamber erupted in panicked whispers. The implications were staggering. If other species learned that resistance was possible, that total warfare could deter even the hegemony, the consequences could spread across the galaxy. You are threatening the stability of galactic civilization, Dixonall said slowly. No, Supreme Commander. We are offering galactic civilization a choice. You can continue to rule through fear and superior firepower, or you can learn to coexist with species that refuse to be ruled. Mackenzie leaned forward slightly. The decision is yours, but understand that we have already made ours. Earth dies free or Earth dies fighting. There is no third option. The transmission ended, leaving the High Command chamber in stunned silence. Professor Dexmina spoke first. Supreme Commander, I believe we are witnessing the birth of a new paradigm in galactic relations. The humans have demonstrated that determined resistance can impose unacceptable costs even on superior forces. What do you recommend? Dixonall asked. Negotiation, she replied simply. The humans are offering to join Galactic. 1 year later, the galaxy looked different. Admiral Vextara stood in the observation deck of the new diplomatic station orbiting Earth. Through the transparent walls, she could see human ships docked alongside hegemony vessels. The sight still amazed her. Not because the humans had built a space fleet in just 12 months, but because they had done it their way. Human warships looked nothing like standard galactic designs. Where other species built elegant vessels focused on precision strikes and tactical superiority, humans had created floating fortresses designed for one purpose: maximum destruction. Their ships carried enough firepower to level planets, and their crews were trained in doctrines that made veteran hegemony officers uncomfortable. The quarterly report from the Integration Council, her aide announced. Handing her a datapad, Vextara read through the statistics with growing unease. The humans had not simply joined galactic civilization. They had changed it. The first changes had been subtle. Species that had accepted hegemony rule for centuries began asking questions about their agreements. Worlds that had never resisted occupation started requesting renegotiated terms. The humans had shared their military histories freely, and other species were learning disturbing lessons. Admiral, her aide continued, we have received another request for military consultation. From whom? The Kepler Collective. They want human advisors to help plan defensive strategies against the Vorthan raids. Vextara sighed. This was becoming a pattern. The humans had become the galaxy's experts on total warfare, and everyone wanted their advice. What worried her was how eagerly they shared their knowledge. Captain Mackenzie entered the observation deck, now wearing the insignia of Earth's first galactic ambassador. His role had evolved far beyond what anyone had expected. He was no longer just representing humanity to the galaxy. He was teaching the galaxy to think like humans. Admiral, he greeted her with a polite nod. I trust you received the proposal. From the Andorian Defense Force? I did. Vextara's voice was carefully neutral. They want to purchase human weapon designs. Not purchase, Mackenzie corrected. We don't sell weapons to allies. We share defensive technologies freely. There's a difference, is there? Your defensive technologies include plans for biological weapons that could sterilize star systems. Mackenzie looked out at the ships docked around the station. Admiral, the Andorians are facing extinction from the hive swarms. Conventional tactics have failed them completely. They need solutions that can stop an enemy that doesn't negotiate, doesn't retreat, and doesn't feel pain. So you teach them to fight like humans. We teach them to survive like humans, Mackenzie replied. The hive swarms understand overwhelming force. We're giving the Andorians the tools to provide it. Vextara studied the human ambassador carefully. Over the past year, she had watched him work with dozens of species. He was always polite, always helpful, always willing to share humanity's knowledge. But the knowledge he shared was changing everything. Captain, are you aware that 17 worlds have withdrawn from hegemony protection in the past 6 months? I'm aware. Mackenzie's expression didn't change. I'm also aware that most of those worlds are now capable of defending themselves. For the first time in centuries, isn't that a good thing? It depends on your perspective, Vexthara said carefully. From the hegemony's viewpoint, it represents a breakdown of galactic order. From humanity's viewpoint, it represents the beginning of galactic freedom. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the station's communication system. All senior staff to the command center immediately. Priority Alpha emergency? They rushed to the command center, where dozens of holographic displays showed a developing crisis in the outer rim. Admiral Kethvar's image dominated the main screen. His expression grim. "We have a situation," he announced. The Torvan Empire has launched a full-scale invasion of the Epsilon sector. 12 worlds are under attack. They're using new tactics we haven't seen before. Mackenzie stepped forward. What kind of tactics? Total warfare, Kethvar replied. No attempts at surgical strikes or infrastructure preservation. They're destroying everything. Civilian targets, agricultural centers, even their own forward bases when they're threatened with capture. Vexthara felt a cold realization wash over her. They're fighting like humans. Worse, Kethvar continued. Intelligence suggests they've been studying human military doctrines for months. They've adapted your strategies to their technology and psychology. The result is devastating. The tactical displays showed the invasion's progress. Where hegemony forces expected traditional strategic movements, they found scorched earth tactics. Where they anticipated negotiated surrenders, they met fanatical resistance. The Torvan Empire had learned humanity's most important lesson. Sometimes winning meant making victory too expensive for the enemy. Casualties? Mackenzie asked quietly. Unprecedented, Kethvar admitted. Both sides are taking losses that would have ended traditional conflicts within days. But neither side is backing down. Mackenzie turned to Vexthara. Admiral, I need to speak with Supreme Commander Thexanol immediately. That can be arranged, she replied, already dreading what the human was planning. Within an hour, the emergency. Council was in session again. This time, Captain Mackenzie was included as an official participant. His presence at the curved table represented a shift that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. Supreme Commander, Mackenzie began, the situation in the Epsilon sector represents everything we warned you about when we first met. Explain, Vexanol ordered. For 3,000 years, the hegemony maintained peace through superior firepower and the threat of overwhelming force. But that only worked because your enemies fought according to your rules. They fought to win, so they could be convinced to surrender when victory became impossible. Mackenzie activated a tactical display, showing the current conflict. The Torvan Empire is no longer fighting to win. They're fighting to destroy. They've learned that causing maximum damage to their enemies is more important than preserving their own forces. You taught them this? General Kukstar accused. No, General. We taught them that it was possible. The Torvan Empire learned it on their own, and they won't be the last. Supreme Commander Thexanol leaned forward. What are you suggesting, Captain? I'm suggesting that the age of conquest is over, Mackenzie replied simply. The galaxy now knows that any species can choose mutual destruction over defeat. The old rules don't work anymore. He gestured to the displays showing the ongoing battle. You have two choices. You can try to restore order through force, which will only teach more species to fight like the Torvans. Or you can accept that the galaxy has changed and adapt to the new reality. And what does this new reality look like? Minister Velkin asked. Cooperation instead of conquest. Negotiation instead of domination. Mutual defense instead of imperial expansion. Professor Dexmina spoke up from her position at the table. Captain Mackenzie is correct. Our psychological analyses show that once a species learns total warfare is possible, they cannot return to limited conflict. The knowledge changes them permanently. Supreme Commander Thexanol was silent for a long moment. Around the table, the faces of the galaxy's leaders showed the weight of this realization. Their empire, built on 3 millennia of careful conquest, was crumbling not through military defeat but through ideological infection. What do you propose? Vexinol asked finally. Mackenzie straightened in his chair. The formation of a galactic defense alliance. Not an empire with subjects, but a confederation of equals. Each species maintains sovereignty over their territory while contributing to collective security. And if some species refuse to join, then they face the consequences of isolation? But Admiral, the alternative is watching more conflicts like the Epsilon War spread across the galaxy. How many species are you willing to see destroy themselves before you accept that the old ways are finished? The council chamber fell silent. The weight of the decision was enormous. The hegemony was being asked to voluntarily surrender the power it had held for millennia. Admiral Vexthara spoke first. Supreme Commander, the humans have proven that their approach works. In 1 year, they've gone from a pre-space flight civilization to one of the most influential voices in galactic politics. Not through conquest, but through cooperation. Other voices joined in support. Species after species that had worked with humanity reported similar experiences. The humans shared technology freely, honored their agreements completely, and asked only for equal treatment in return. Supreme Commander Vexinol looked around the table one final time. Very well. Captain Mackenzie, you have authorization to begin drafting the charter for this Galactic Defense Alliance. Thank you, Supreme Commander. I think you'll find that voluntary cooperation is far more effective than forced compliance. As the session ended, Admiral Vexthara remained behind with Mackenzie. Captain, do you really believe this will work? Mackenzie smiled, and for the first time in their long acquaintance it seemed genuinely hopeful. Admiral, humans have spent 10,000 years learning how to destroy each other. Maybe it's time we learned how to build something together. He looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's windows.